So today on the podcast, we have Darren Sloane. He is the president of All Temp Insulation Contractors. Darren, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. So today we just want to learn, a little bit about your story, what you see in the industry, just the overall scope of what All Temp does, everything you see in the industry. So I guess we could start. Tell me about your story. How do you get into being a mechanical insulator? Was that always your dream? What was your path to get in here?
Well, I don't think it's too many people's dream to be
Right.
a mechanical insulator. Like it's one of those kind of really niche trades where usually you're brought in by a friend or a family member or something like that,
Yeah.
which is kind of what happened in my case. My grandfather was an insulator, and then my dad became an insulator as well. So then naturally, it kind of the third generation kind of was just naturally gravitated towards that for me.
Yeah.
I did fight it though. So
Yeah.
like my parents, growing up in like the 90s, they were really pushing the college university path.
Yeah.
As I'm sure like a lot of people in my generation were along that path as well.
Yeah.
Like, so I did the whole university thing. Like I went and studied biology in University of Windsor, and then I even worked abroad. But eventually, like I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to kind of join my dad in the family business. So
Yeah.
when I came back from working in overseas in Japan, then I ended up jumping in, and I had done it in the summers,
Right.
and like on the weekends, like my dad had made me work during when I was in high school and stuff
It's
like
like a
that.
summer job kind of thing.
Yeah, but I really didn't like it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was, like itchy insulation,
Yeah.
just the hard work of it. Maybe like I guess I didn't really like, but it's something I've definitely grown to really love and be passionate about.
Absolutely. That's wicked. I didn't know you were third generation. It's funny. I'm actually third generation in my side of the business as well. So similar story to you. My grandfather got into pumps and things like that. My father got into it after him, and now same thing. I wasn't interested at all, growing up kind of thing, and now it's just like you with insulation. It's all that I do, right? It's all that I think about. And
Right.
so tell me about Japan. What's the story behind that? You said you spent some time in Japan.
Oh, Japan. Yeah. When I graduated university in 2009. So
Right.
it was like kind of, the economy wasn't the best then. And it was a little bit hard to find a job. So I was working for my dad as well.
Yeah.
And just kind of on the hunt for jobs. Like I didn't really want to go back to school.
Yeah.
Originally, like I maybe thought about being like a doctor or something like that, but I never really had like a defined, goal or dream job or something. And I was just done with school. I didn't want to go back anymore. So I was just applying for jobs, and this an opportunity to teach English in Japan popped up.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'll
That's
apply and see what happens. So I apply and I get the interview, and then I got to the group interview, and each stage I'm like, I'll just keep going and see, maybe I'll probably just, I won't go, but I'll just go through the process or whatever. And then before I knew it, I was on a flight and I hadn't said no, and I kept going. And
That's incredible.
I just went and taught English. It was a really cool experience. So
How long do you live there for?
just over a year.
So how's the Japanese culture different to ours? What was it like living there? Tell me about that.
It was really cool going to Japan. So like really friendly people.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And everyone really treated me really, really well. Like I was really fortunate. Like I almost felt like a little bit of a rock star over there. Like everyone just loved the Canadian, the Canadian hockey player or whatever. Not that I was a good hockey player or anything, but I played hockey from Canada, and they're like, so it was pretty fun. Teaching it ended up not really being my thing. Like, I did like it while I was there. I liked my students, like helping them, learn how to speak. It was more of like a casual conversation school. So
Right.
I didn't really need to like teach grammar or anything like that. But yeah, it was really cool.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about the mechanical insulation industry, right? Um, I don't know much about insulation myself. Like I say, I'm into more the pumps. We do some plumbing, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Tell me about the insulation side of things. Why is that important for the industry? What's the real value that the insulation brings?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, like when you're like, you and me both deal with a lot of facilities, buildings, like commercial, residential, industrial buildings. Like insulation, it really comes down to three things for me. Well, the overarching theme is protection.
Right.
Like you're protecting your personnel and your people on site, like maybe protecting them from hot and cold surfaces by having those insulated. You're protecting equipment and the buildings themselves from damage. Let's say from weather, if ductwork or piping outside is exposed to the elements, you're protecting those systems. And inside, protecting from things like condensation, because that can wreak havoc inside a building. If you got some water dripping down from some pipes because of condensation, it can lead to mold or water damage on ceiling tiles or whatever it might be. So you're kind of protecting the buildings themselves. Right. And then one of the major things that's been really highlighted over the last few years is protecting the environment. Right. So when you're insulating your systems, like your heating and cooling systems, you're bumping up that efficiency, and you're reducing your carbon footprint, lowering energy costs, that kind of things that can be really beneficial to the buildings and the companies that we serve. So
yeah, absolutely. Do you see a lot of energy saving potential on the insulation side? Like I know that is sort of that's what everybody wants right now, right? On the government side, on the private side, everybody wants environmental sustainability.
Yeah.
What's the insulation's role in that side of it?
Oh, a major role. So yeah, like one little example is an 8-foot section of a steam pipe,
right? Like
operating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Like you insulate that and you offset like 20,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. Like you can just that amount, like you insulate with 2-inch thick. I could actually like forward you maybe like some of that data. Like it's pretty crazy. Not all building mechanical systems operate at such a high temperature like that, but that's just a glimpse of what it can do, like the power that it can have. So I see it a lot in a lot of facilities where insulation is maybe neglected over years, and you've had like repairs and things like that. So you'll have like a patch here and patch there, and like a few feet here and a few feet there, and that, like it's all holes in a bucket, right? So you patch up those holes, you can improve your efficiency. You're improving the bottom line a little bit, and then it's something you can do immediately too. Fix all those little issues with insulation, improve efficiency, and then you can kind of save up for some of these capital projects where you're actually converting the technology and working towards like net zero. And
so you find they actually see a big difference on their bottom line when they're actually insulating, and they getting the savings from that on the building side, or the owner side?
Yeah. Depending on the system, for sure. Right. Like heating in particular, even just upgrading the thickness of insulation, you can really see some savings, and you can there's payback for insulating miscellaneous valves and stuff like that. Like you can see return on that investment within months, sometimes maybe up to a couple of years, but as early as months, right? You can have that paid back, right?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's one of the things that it's exciting to see, like the impact that you can have.
Yeah, that's like incredible.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things to do is bring an infrared camera to site, especially for these like heating systems. Yeah, and you can do these before and after pictures, and you can really see the difference, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of your stuff on LinkedIn. It really is quite something to see the actual, just like you say, on the infrared side, you see the huge difference when you're taking the picture before and after. It's like, holy shit, that's a lot of energy you're saving, right?
It's so clear. Like the temperature is reduced by like 50 degrees Celsius or whatever it might be. Like you can see it right there in the imaging. It's really cool. I like to show it as much as I can, obviously through LinkedIn and even just with our crews and stuff. So the guys and the people working like know what they're doing is having an impact, right? So
I'm sure they get to take a little bit of pride away from that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about the egg story as we're talking about your LinkedIn post.
Yeah, the egg story was like a little bit of my mini viral moment on LinkedIn where I don't know why I thought about doing this, but one time I was just in this, it was a hospital actually in the Toronto area. And they had all this exposed steam pipe and steam PRV valves, just miscellaneous valves and equipment and all that stuff. And I was like, I wonder if I could actually just cook an egg. It's so hot. I bet I could cook an egg on here. Like, what kind of visual would that be? So one day I just brought an egg and I bought like a dollar store frying pan and I just cracked it and opened it and wouldn't you know it, like in 5 minutes that egg was cooked, sunny side up, and
insane.
just on the exposed steam. You know, it's barely even sitting on there. You know how it's like a rounded valve or a rounded pipe. It's just like teetering on there, but it's still enough energy wasted or coming off of the equipment to cook an egg. So
when you showed up for your customers' building with a frying pan and an egg, what did they have to say about that? Were they?
Well,
they must have been blown away, you know?
Yeah, and so we definitely got that job.
Yeah.
So there's a technique maybe you could use, but if you're an insulation contractor, but yeah, it's just clear as day. It's just one of those things. You got the infrared pictures, and then you have something kind of like tangible that you can compare it to, like cooking an egg.
Yeah.
And you can just see the benefits there, just the energy loss, and even the protection too. Like you're cooking an egg, obviously. And operators might get burned if they're manipulating those valves and stuff like that too, right? So
that's one major issue that I see is on the safety side of it. Like just guys, you're walking through a mechanical room, you could just rest your arm on a pipe. You could think it's not that hot, and you touch it and you get a serious burn, right?
Yeah.
So that's something I've seen on our end for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I see it often too.
It's not fun.
No.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
More on the business side of it, right? So you say you worked with your dad, you were sort of doing it as a summer job, and my understanding is you worked as an insulator, doing the actual installation side of it for quite a while, and recently you've transitioned to be more on the business management side of it, right? You're now the president of All Temp. You're running the company now as opposed to just doing the installation. Tell me about that transition, and tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It was a challenging one for sure. One of the reasons why it was challenging, I think, is because I didn't really prepare for the hole that was going to be generated in the field.
Right.
So with me being on the tools, I was, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I was like one of our most productive field technicians.
Yeah.
Installing out there. So you take that out and you got to replace it somehow, either with, giving more responsibility to current team members, or you have to, or you're hiring to fill that spot as well. Right. So that was definitely a big challenge for me. Obviously my time had to be allocated to different tasks, switching from, actually installing, to more of management or like revenue generating activities. So it was definitely an adjustment that I wish I had planned for a little bit more in advance. Like if I could, there's a lot of people in this same situation. Absolutely. Like you too, right? Like you're kind of taking over for a family business, right? Like and that's kind of how it is typically done in construction and in the trades as well. Like so, like if I could give a tip, it would be kind of plan it out a little bit. I always kind of pushed it off, being like, you know what, like I'm gonna have so much responsibility in a few years, so I want to minimize that for now and put it on the back burner. But really, I wish I would have planned it out. Right. Started figuring out how I was going to replace myself before actually moving into a management role. So I did it the opposite way. I moved into that management role, and then I had to figure out how I was going to replace myself, like on the fly.
So how did you deal with that transition? Like you mentioned before, that's a big issue that a lot of the tradespeople face that issue, right? You start out sort of as a one-man show. Maybe you bring on a couple of guys with you, but you're still on the tools, you're working. But at some point, you kind of have to transition from the tools, just like you did, and get away from that. How did you handle that? What was your sort of strategy? Was it sort of just patching the fix once you saw it, or patching the hole? How did you deal with it?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was. Like I said, like I wish I would have planned better, and I wish I could say, hey, like this is 1, 2, 3 step you got to do to move along.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, but how I did manage was just, identifying team members that were ready to take on more responsibility,
Yeah.
and then really just learning to delegate. So you can't do everything yourself.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like being a one-man show, you're doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You gotta step back and focus on different things. So, you're going to focus on more business development, that kind of stuff, less install. So it's just kind of shifting your time, what your time is allocated to,
Yeah.
and also just being able to delegate that to competent team members.
So you really need a solid core team with you. That's sort of how we operate as well, right? You have your guys that you really have to trust them and put that emphasis on their ability. So I guess that's probably how you took it on and just brought guys under that. And how big is your team? What sort of company you guys run in there?
We're a small contractor, so our total team is 8. So,
Okay.
And we've been similar size for many years.
Yeah.
My father was comfortable at that time, at that size.
Yeah.
I'd like to grow, so I have like some aspirations to maybe grow a little bit bigger. But so that's where we stand right now.
That's interesting. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what's your dream for the company? Where do you see All Temp in 5, 10, 15 years? Where do you see All Temp going?
Oh yeah, obviously I'd love to just create more impact. So like we're a small company, so the bigger that we get, the more people that we can kind of help and spread awareness to our industry and the benefits that it can have. So I'd love to eventually have some big shop, have a big team. Like that's kind of my near-term focus is going to be kind of building that team.
Okay.
Like building a kind of an executive to kind of move forward with, right? Like a management team. So that'll be the next kind of phase of growth, I guess. So.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the team, right? I face these issues on not so much issues, but how do you keep your team motivated? A team of 8 guys, it doesn't sound like the biggest number, but it's still 8 people that, you have to support their families themselves, and, you sort of have to support their dreams and help them want to grow with you as you grow, right? How do you keep your team motivated at All Temp?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I think it seems to be a trend in many workplaces now where people want to kind of know what their purpose is, like, what kind of impact they're having to make the world a better place. So I kind of try and highlight those things. So, a lot of people obviously are motivated by their salaries and the income that they can make to support their families and stuff. But like, I like to kind of showcase the next level, like, the impact you can have. Like I mentioned, like, we're working in places like hospitals and schools. Maintaining that infrastructure is important for society, right? So I think it's important for them to know that. And I try and communicate that and hope that the guys, it helps them take pride in the work that they do. So
that's incredible. Do you face, like, as you grow, are you facing sort of staffing issues in the sense that I know a lot of what's going on the trade side right now is people are having a hard time finding good guys, right? Yeah, there's people you can find, but it's like finding great tradespeople that really take that pride in their work. Do you have those same sort of issues, or have you really sort of narrowed down, your recruiting side of it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty universal, like those issues. So yeah, obviously, like I think we share those challenges, particularly in our trade too, because when you think of construction workers or tradesmen or tradespeople, like you're not thinking mechanical insulator, you're thinking like a plumber or carpenter, electrician, that kind of stuff. You're not thinking mechanical insulator. So I think particularly our trade has a little bit more of a challenge with it just because it's not like one of those sexy trades. But at the same time, I think that's why things like this are important, like doing podcasts, making content on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, where I can, or installation contractors can showcase what our trade is about and the impact we can have. And I think that can only help, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. So that's sort of your strategy in terms of getting people excited about the industry and make it a little bit more that sexy trade kind of thing to get people to want to do it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's part of it. And hopefully, maybe somebody watches something or sees a post or listens to this podcast, and maybe they're interested, and maybe they might reach out to a local union hall or a contractor and see if if there's a place for them, right?
Absolutely. So tell me about, we could transition into, do you have any advice for younger contractors, not younger contractors, but younger tradespeople? Maybe they're interested in getting into the mechanical installation side of things. Even if, let's say it's a high school student, he doesn't even know about mechanical installation, right? What's your advice or sort of the career path for somebody that wants to go into that industry?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you got to have a certain level of self-awareness, right. Figure out what you want to do. Like, it took me a while. Like, I was bouncing around, went to university, went across to Japan and realized what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of work with my hands. I wanted to, bounce around to sites. Like, so if that's something that you find appealing, where you don't want to be in a desk every day, every minute of every day, you want to, be able to step back at the end of the day and you've built something, or you've helped build something, then I think, that's a good start. First of all, having that self-awareness. And then, once you have the mindset that because the hard thing for me when I first started was, getting in the mindset of that you're going to get dirty, you're going to get sweaty, you're going to work hard. But if you can just accept that and then just, almost like one foot in front of the other, then like it's so much easier to do. Like, if you're thinking about every little fiberglass particle that gets on your arm or something, and you're like, you're gonna get handcuffed, and you're not gonna really enjoy it, and you're not gonna be productive. But if you can kind of just get past that, like mentally, and then just like apply yourself to the work that you're doing, then I think that's really beneficial. And if you can work hard, actually kind of switching a little bit, you can recognize the path that you want to do too. Like, right. So let's say you want to just be the best installer that you can be and make these like, these nice pieces of art that like help these buildings in their own ways. Or maybe you want to do something like estimating or management eventually. Like, if you kind of know that path, then you can kind of pay attention to those details while you're working. Like, let's say you wanted to be an estimator. I would say, make note of, how many work hours it took to complete a project. Right. Maybe ask the appropriate questions, like, how much does this cost? Well, like, or, how much was this to source? Like, if you know your path, like, and you're curious about the certain details, I think that's a good thing to keep in mind too. Like, because there's so many different avenues you can take in the trades. So like, if you want, like, you could get into like marketing for a construction company. You could get into sales, like business development, estimating, like I mentioned, management. Like, there's so many things that you can do. Like, obviously, you guys know absolutely, you have so many different roles too, right? Like, there's so much you can do. Like, so just get started, and get, build those skills. Right. Have that end in mind.
That's incredible. So it really is a lot of about the mindset, and then sort of getting your foot in the door and just sort of building and going in the path that you find most interesting, right? Sort of just pivoting.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
kind of what I'm taking away from what you're saying. Something that I listened to you on the Construction Life podcast, right? Shout out to Construction Life.
Manny?
Yeah, shout out to Manny.
Yeah.
So I listened to that on my way here, actually. And one of the things you said that was very interesting was that at first you weren't interested in becoming a mechanical insulator, right? You kind of wanted nothing to do with it. We had mentioned in the podcast that sort of through many years of just building your expertise, now that's your core area of competence in a sense, right? It's sort of that business and the things around it. And that's sort of where you've been able to find the passion. I thought that was very interesting because I have sort of a similar feel, right? I didn't really want to be in the trades industry. That wasn't my dream growing up. But once I got into it and you could sort of find the little things that you enjoy and build that expertise, it sort of becomes easier and fun, and like you find that passion, right?
Right.
That was something that you said that really sort of resonated with me in that podcast. So
thanks for listening to that one. But it's interesting to think about passion. Like, there's a lot of people that might say like, oh, like you gotta find your passion. Keep trying different things to find your passion, which I agree with too. but you can also build a passion.
Right.
You know, like if you put in the effort, the time and effort into anything, you know, I think you'll build a passion for it. So, and that's kind of what happened. It sounds like what happened with you too, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So you find that now you're passionate about installation?
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely wouldn't have thought it for sure. Like it definitely wasn't, you know, my dream job by any means. Like I mentioned, like kind of fighting that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I think just I worked on building the skills and being a good insulator.
Yeah.
And then with that, I just became passionate about it because I became good at, I developed that skill, became good at installing, and then learned more about the benefits and the purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And you know, you combine those two things and you've got a passion whipped up there. So
Oh, that's incredible. So tell me about sort of the industry trends that you see. You know, where do you see the future of the insulation industry, or, you know, tell me about the trends you're seeing in your side of the industry.
Well, I definitely can't predict the future, so I have like no idea what it will look like in like 10, 15, 20 years, but
Right.
there's definitely seems to be some trends. Like obviously, I think insulation materials will get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like 100 years ago, insulators were insulating with asbestos.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then eventually shifting to things like fiberglass became the kind of bread and butter.
Yeah.
And then now you have stuff like elastomeric insulation where it's like flexible and repels water and repels mold growth and all that kind of stuff. So you can insulate, conform it to a booster pump or a chilled water pump or something like that. So you can see, I can see the materials changing, or even shifting further away from what's common now, more to things like elastomeric insulation.
Right.
In terms of maybe construction, like the construction process as a whole, I think prefab is going to be a major player in the next few years, like prefabbing, like skids.
Yeah.
Like you guys see with your pumps and stuff
Absolutely.
too, right? Like there's a little bit of prefab done, like those pumps are shipped to you from Armstrong or whoever, and then installed in site. So I think there'll be more of that, like those like sections of piping and like pipe racks and duct and stuff that'll be done in a controlled environment. Because there'll be benefits to that, right? Like in terms of completing the work efficiently.
Efficiency, yeah.
So I think you'll see definitely more modular construction procedures and prefab. Yeah, and then obviously like changing materials like we've seen over the years with insulation and even jacketings and stuff like that. So
yeah. So do you guys get into sort of the asbestos stuff? I know that's not what I mean by that is asbestos is very common in older buildings, right? Do you guys do any sort of the removing that asbestos and replacing it with newer, better technology, or do you guys more? Is it that somebody else takes care of that side, like removing the asbestos side, and you guys do the new installation? How does that side of it work?
Yeah, like we're part of projects like that,
Right.
but we don't actually do the abatement of asbestos. But we do partner with asbestos abatement companies, where we'll come in after the fact and upgrade the insulation once it's been removed. So it was just something. So there's a lot of contractors that do both. Yeah, it was just something we never had the experience doing. So
you guys have sort of really narrowed down your niche and you focus on getting it done once the asbestos is sort of abated.
Yeah, exactly. So
great.
But it's still pretty common though. It's definitely something to be mindful of. I'm sure you guys are too on site. You probably see it in some of these older buildings. So you know, whether you're a building operator or a contractor, it's something still to be wary of. You know, you might come in contact with that kind of stuff. So
no, it poses, I mean, a major health risk, right? We've sort of ran into that in some of our installs, and we, you know, not only does it stall the project, but you know, once you see it, it's there. You know, your guys start to get concerned, right? It's like, oh God, we're around asbestos and it is a major concern, right? So,
yeah, it's definitely something to navigate. You know, in these older buildings, like definitely in and around the GTA, like you know, it's something you got to be mindful of, and so hopefully the building's aware of it too, and you know they'll. If it does come up, it can be handled appropriately. So,
from your perspective, right? I know what got me interested in the insulation side. For me, I'm a very visual person, right? So when I saw sort of the beauty of the installs that you guys did, I mean, it takes just a regular plumbing install, takes it from that and just pipes and everything to like, it's almost like a work of art. How important of a role does that visual aspect play on the insulation side?
Oh, it's a big role, I think. So,
Right.
because when you walk into a mechanical space, like, what do you see? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of the times you see insulation on top of the pipes and the ducts, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not seeing the raw piping; you're seeing the thing insulated. So, I think it plays like a big role, you know. And I kind of like to push that on our team.
Mm.
That fact on our team, like, hey, like we're covering what other skilled people did.
Yeah.
So like, you know, we got to match that, or if not exceed that same quality level, right?
Absolutely.
Because we represent them who we're working for, who installed these systems.
Yeah.
And we're also like representing the facility too. Because like
Absolutely.
when you walk into a good mechanical space, like obviously you probably see it every day too. Like, you know, when it's a facility that's taking care of their
Absolutely.
stuff, right? Like, it's pristine. It's, you know, everything's painted nice, clean and slick. There's no water dripping on the floor or puddles. And
No, there's a big gap there. You could definitely see
yeah,
who's running it right and who's not. Right?
yeah. And well, and some people, they, you know, obviously they might not have the same budgets as as other facilities too, right? Which, you know, I'm empathetic to that too. But
Absolutely.
you can definitely tell. So there's definitely that aesthetics portion of our trade, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
So, you know, it can really, it's a way that we can separate ourselves, and it just makes a space look good. So
That's really what got me interested in working with you guys initially, because we do a lot of booster pump installs, just regular pump installs, and we would do like a brilliant install. It would look incredible, and then, you know, sort of whoever's on the job, the plumbers or whatever, they would just slap on some insulation after, and it almost kind of took like a beautiful pipework install and made it into not so nice install, because all you see now is just the insulation you slapped on.
right.
But when we brought you guys in, the work you guys did was incredible. Like, it looked pristine. It was actually something like, before I would take pictures once pipework's done, I would shoot that out to everybody. I wouldn't want them to see the insulation side. Now, you guys sort of came in, did the whole, you know, beautiful insulation job. And that's the picture I take, and the customers love that. They go, "Wow, that's an incredible job." Because before they'd be like, "Okay, how does it look insulated?" I'd be like, "I don't want to show you that."
Just avoid it. Just avoid. Oh, we didn't have a camera, so
yeah.
Oh, what about your phone? Oh, I don't know. But.
Exactly. So I would just say, yeah, you know, the insulation guys came after I left, kind of thing. You know, I would kind of hide from it, but now, you know, we're really able to take that pride in our install, because you guys have really helped us on that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. So, and yeah, like I definitely agree. Right. So, like, you want to be able to show both pictures, like the pipe before and after installation. You definitely don't want to hide from it. Right. So,
exactly.
Yeah. It's the final product. Right. So,
so tell me a little bit more on the personal side. Like, you're running a business, you guys are in a busy trade. I'm sure it gets a little hectic. How do you balance your work life and your personal life, right? That's a huge thing, is the work-life balance. Tell me what you do to, you know, I know you have a family, you have kids. How do you balance that life?
Yeah, it's tough, especially, you know, recently taking over operations of the company. It's, you know, there's a lot on my plate. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't know. Balance almost seems like not the right word. There's not. It doesn't feel like there's balance, but it's okay too, because like we were talking about earlier, it's my passion now. It's kind of like what I do. Like, you know, maybe like 10 years ago, I would have been playing video games all the time when I got home, but now I'm like on LinkedIn, or I'm thinking about what I can do for some content, or what I can do on this next project or whatever. Like, it's what I'm thinking about. It's my passion. So, but I think, in terms of like balancing with or juggling with your family and your friends and some of your hobbies and stuff, like, I think what's helped me is making the effort to schedule,
right?
Like being intentional with your time. So like knowing that I'm going to have pickleball on Tuesday nights. Like, you're a fellow pickleball
Absolutely.
player. So I that's just locked in. And I got hockey on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that I'm going to be doing movie night with my boys on Friday night. Like, it's these things that if they're like locked into the schedule, you'll make time to make it happen. Or whether it's whether you want to go to the gym or like anything really. If you prioritize it and schedule it, then you can make it happen. Because if you don't schedule, at least in my experience, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like if I don't make time for vacation, I won't be going on a vacation. Like you've got to make the time. That's what I can say to maybe balancing.
So you really have to prioritize your personal life as much as you prioritize your work life in a sense.
Yeah, and then intentionally schedule it. I at least for me, like I can't just go like kind of like play it by ear and like I'll get to exercising or whatever. It's like, no, I gotta do it at this time. Hopefully throw it in the schedule and then kind of like live by that, right? So
absolutely. I know for me that's one of the hardest parts is balancing that sort of work-life balance side of it. For me, what I do is my fiance, she really pressures me on that side. Like I won't take a vacation left unchecked, but she'll be like, no, we're going on a trip. So I'll be like, okay, you know, we have to go on that trip kind of thing. I'm sure your wife probably plays a big role in that side of it for you as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like definitely helps like ground you a little bit and make you realize what's important, make sure that you got the time to be with the family and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely feel that as well.
So I saw on LinkedIn when I was researching this, right? I saw that you wrote a children's book. That was something I never knew about you. So tell me about that.
Yeah, a little surprising, right? Like a mechanical insulator who wrote a kids book. So.
I saw it. I saw author, and then I saw the title. So I clicked the book. I was like, no way, Darren wrote a children's book. And then so I was checking. I was like, did he write this, or like what was your role in that? So I saw you wrote it. So I was like, okay, tell me about that, man.
Well, you know, that kind of came out of COVID. So, you know, during COVID, we were locked down at home, and one of the things that came to mind to do was to make a story. Like my boys were really small at that point.
Yeah.
So I was reading a lot of kids books to them. Okay. And you know, you're reading some of these kids books, nothing against like children's authors or anything, but sometimes like it seems so random what kids like. Yeah. And like it's just like, I bet I could do a kid's book or something like and I've always had a fascination with like sci-fi and space and that kind of stuff, so it just seemed fitting for me to try and pass that along to my boys, and so I wrote a book about a little spaceship, and it was a cool experience. It was more, in retrospect, I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on it. I kind of just rushed it out I almost made it a challenge to myself, like hey, like I think I can do this, and let's see if I can. It was almost like a experiment rather than trying to make the best possible story and product that I could. Yeah. I kind of just wanted to see what I could, or that I could do it. And yeah, like with technology and the resources that we have nowadays, like it was pretty easy, you know. Like spend some time actually like writing the poem, which then converted to like a story, and then with resources like Fiverr. I don't know if you've heard of Fiverr before.
Absolutely.
I managed to get like an illustrator, freelance illustrator through that, and you know, we worked through some storyboards and stuff like that, and managed to put something together, and then just sold it on and then just hosted it on Amazon. So I didn't even need to make any copies. Like it's just made on demand when somebody buys the book or whatever.
No so they'll actually go through and print it and everything, or is it mainly on really?
Yep.
That's incredible.
It's like made on demand. Like Amazon actually has their own like department or facility that does this kind of thing. So if you upload all like the product, then they can manufacture it and ship it, obviously when it's ordered. So
I did not know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's expensive to do it that way.
Yeah.
Like for like a $10 book, for example, like I don't mind sharing, like I actually get $1. So $9 goes to Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's not really, but it wasn't really about making money or anything. Yeah. It was kind of doing
the challenge.
Yeah, it was the challenge, and then also, you know, kind of showing my two boys like what you can do, right? So
did you read it to them when you were done? Of
Oh,
course,
yeah,
you
yeah.
must have, right?
Oh yeah. So like they were like super about it for maybe a few weeks,
Yeah.
and then it was like, we have tons of books at home too. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, so
Okay.
she's got tons of books and resources and stuff. So it was a hot topic for a small time, and then it was gone. But
So at some point they're like, all right, what are you doing next?
yeah, or let's go to the next story. But I've had some buddies like that I play hockey with and stuff that they'll tell me like, hey, like my kid just loves your book, like
Oy,
yeah,
that must
like
feel incredible.
we read it like at bedtime all the time, like. But so yeah, that feels good. But yeah.
How long did that take? How long did it take to write the whole book? And everything?
So like actually writing the story didn't take too long. Maybe I probably spent maybe only like a few hours, like spread over a few days on writing the actual story. But then going from having the idea to actually getting like the first book published probably took I think probably about 5 months.
Oh, wow.
And that's making the story, having the idea, making the story, and then reaching out to a freelancer, doing storyboards, and then a little bit of back and forth on the images and that kind of stuff, and then actually like submitting it into Amazon's platform. And
that's incredible.
Yeah. So
all right. So you reading any books recently, or Netflix, anything like that? What's sort of your wind down?
Wind down recently was Fallout
on
Amazon Prime. So I was a big Fallout gamer back in the day. So I played the original right up to New Vegas and Fallout 4 and all that kind of stuff. And so when that show came on, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to watch it. And my wife really enjoyed it too, even though she wasn't into the video games. So. But other than that, I'm a podcast junkie. I know we were talking about it before. Like I love listening to Alex Hormozy and Gary Vaynerchuk and all those podcasts is what I'm listening to. I even flicking on the YouTube even just before bed or something, checking out a quick episode or something. But
that's pretty cool. I'm kind of in the same boat. I love a podcast. On my way to work in the morning, on my way home, like it's so good, man. How do you?
Yeah, I think we were talking about it. Like you listen to Hormozy's podcast too. Do you have any other go-tos or?
One that I really like is Masters in Business. It's a Bloomberg podcast.
Okay.
That one it's more on like the finance side, and it's kind of like it's sort of like the big fish in the finance industry, but they talk about a lot of interesting topics that I would have never heard about had I not listened to the podcast.
Right.
So it's a little more abstract, and it's not really many key takeaways you can take from it, but I find it interesting just to hear, how those guys look at the world kind of thing.
Yeah, like a macro perspective.
Exactly.
Kind of thing?
It's a lot of the macro side of it. So I find it's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, maybe I'll check that out. So.
And obviously there's like the classics, like Joe Rogan's fun if you're not.
Yep.
Like, if you had a little bit much of the business side of it, then you could, throw on one that's a little fun kind of thing.
Yeah,
just talking about hot topics or whatever.
Right.
So,
or his comedian buddies and stuff. Yeah, I listen to Rogan too. So
those are cool, just to sort of wind down a bit and just relax your mind a bit. So yeah, I mean that's it. So do you have anything you want to say to the camera? Anything you're working on?
Well, I'm not sure when this gets aired, but we're just coming into like the cooling season, so it's a busy time for us. Cooling season always is because we've got a lot of boiler projects coming up in the summer, getting ready for the next heating season, and then really busy in the summer always for work. So don't really get to do too much. I don't really get too much time off in the summer, which is fine. But coming up to cooling season, I know a lot of people that might listen to your show are in the building maintenance, property management space. It's just if I could just bring up one thing, it would be to check the cooling systems. Because those once you switch over to cooling, then you're gonna have sweating and condensating and all that kind of stuff. So no one wants to have that stained ceiling tiles and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
that's so. Now that you mention that, what's your ideal customer? What sort of customers do you target mainly?
Well, we've kind of got like two two target customers, I guess, if you're going to word it like that. Like
Right.
we work with mechanical contractors
Yeah.
as a subcontractor on maybe like new construction or retrofits. So there's that lane of our business,
Right.
and then another lane of our business would be working direct for facilities. So
Right.
doing like insulation maintenance or maybe upgrades for personnel protection or efficiency and that kind of stuff. Or condensation control is obviously a huge one for us, especially in the summer.
So you guys mainly working on the new install side, like the buildings going up, or you guys working mainly on like retrofits or the service side? What's sort of your main side of the business?
It's both. So
Okay.
yeah, we've got a good mix. Like, so we're being a small contractor. Like we don't have too many large scale projects. Like we're not doing like a 50-story high rise or something like that.
Yeah.
But like we'll do small administration buildings.
Okay.
School retrofits are big. Like I mentioned, like we're doing. I think we've got over a dozen boiler rooms that are getting retrofitted. That we'll be doing this summer and fall. So yeah, like those new construction, but a little bit on the smaller scale. But and maintenance and that kind of stuff. We've got a good mix.
Right. Great. Do you ever find any conflicts of interest? Like you mentioned, you work with mechanical contractors, but you also work directly with the buildings, right? Do you ever have issues on that side? Like I know on our side, sometimes, there may be a conflict of interest. We do put a large emphasis on making sure that there's no conflict of interest, but do you guys see that on your side on the installation?
I don't think there's really too much of a conflict of interest, but there definitely is some a little bit of some challenges that you got to navigate. So I've learned the hard way on this. Like when I first started back in the trade, and I was just working installing, like maintaining those, like the chain of command and like the relationships is important. Like I learned the hard way when kind of innocently too. Like I remember once we were working in this building and I was doing some installation for a cooling coil, and one of the I can't even remember now, this was so long ago. One of the building operators or like one of the maintenance managers or something came by while I was installing, and he was really happy with the work, like, complimenting and everything. And he's like, "Oh, like, do you have like a business card or whatever?" Yeah. And I didn't really think anything of it. Like, and we were working for a mechanical company at the time. So, not one that we had a particularly close relationship with either. So, and I remember I did have business card and I gave it to him. And as I was giving it to him, one of the mechanical managers like came in and didn't really like react or anything, but I think he was a little bit like turned off or a little bit annoyed that like it seemed like I was maybe like going over his head or whatever. So there's definitely those relationships and those chains that you have to maintain. So like, if we're ever working together and you like you're the direct contact for the customer, it's like I'm always talking through you, right? Absolutely. Like so it's like I definitely learned that the hard way. I'm pretty sure we didn't do any work for that company again, or maybe not very much, which is unfortunate. Like it's not like I had any nefarious intentions. Like I was just a young kid at the time, like not really realizing what I was doing. But those. So not necessarily a conflict of interest, but you do have those things that you got to be mindful of. There's relationships built, and you got to respect those relationships and interact accordingly, right? So
I guess it all kind of really comes down to the intent, right? If you're really not intending to do any damage and you really focus on your core customer, there's really no, like I said, conflict of interest there.
Yeah, like obviously, like the mechanicals customer and our customer, the end customer is the same person, right? Yeah. Like it's the building, it's the facility. So it can be a little bit interesting in that respect. So, but you just gotta have open lines of communication. Absolutely. Because a lot of the times, like if you're working with a good construction partner and it's completely unrelated to like their scope, they're fine to just be like, you can deal with them directly or whatever. And but like that's just like. And we're happy to work together with the two, like whatever they want. Like I always now I leave it kind of in their court. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want to work on this together, or do you mind going solo? So Like, yeah,
that's definitely a good approach. Then.
Yeah, like that's definitely for a subcontractor. I think that's something to be mindful of for sure. So
yeah, that's great. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you on, Darren. It really has been great. I hope we could do this again sometime. And
yeah, for sure.
Thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a cool set too. This is my second podcast, and like this one's got like the comfy couches and everything. So it's like, well, I'm liking it. It's a good vibe.
You get almost kind of lost in the couch here, right? I'm getting pretty cozy. But yeah, all right, Darren.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.